Life often throws storms at us, relentless and unforgiving. We find ourselves caught in currents we cannot control, battered by winds that seem determined to break us. In these moments, it is easy to feel utterly powerless, adrift in a sea of external chaos. Yet, amidst the tumult, a profound truth echoes from ancient wisdom. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, once offered a beacon of hope in the darkness. He simply stated, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." This timeless insight invites us to look inward, to discover a sanctuary that no storm can breach. It reminds us that while the world may rage, our inner landscape remains ours to command. The true battle is never with the external, but always within the confines of our own perception. Consider Daniel, a man whose days were a relentless cycle of frustration. His mornings began with the blare of an alarm, signaling another day of demands and disappointments. At work, his boss's sharp words cut deep, eroding his confidence with each passing hour. The commute home was a torturous crawl through gridlock, each honking horn a fresh assault on his frayed nerves. Then, the sight of bills piled high on the kitchen table, a stark reminder of financial burdens, would extinguish any lingering spark of peace. Daniel's life felt like a constant uphill battle against forces far greater than himself. He fought against the traffic, against his boss's unreasonable expectations, against the mounting pressures of daily existence. But the more he struggled, the more entangled he became. Each attempt to control the uncontrollable only tightened the chains of his frustration, leaving him feeling utterly powerless and trapped. The weight of these external pressures began to crush Daniel's spirit. He carried the day's frustrations home, allowing them to fester and poison his inner world. His patience wore thin, replaced by a volatile irritability that simmered just beneath the surface. He found himself snapping at his family, the very people he cherished most, unable to contain the torrent of his own internal turmoil. A slammed door, a moment of silence in a darkened room, became his desperate escape. He had allowed the relentless demands of the outside world to dictate his emotional state, to steal his inner peace. His mind, once a place of quiet reflection, had become a battleground. The constant barrage of external events had eroded his resilience, pushing him closer and closer to the edge. Until one day, the dam finally broke, and Daniel found himself utterly overwhelmed, broken down by the very chaos he had tried so desperately to fight. In the quiet aftermath of his breakdown, a flicker of curiosity stirred within Daniel. He sought solace, not in distraction, but in understanding. He found himself drawn to an old, unassuming book of philosophy, its pages filled with the wisdom of ages. Within its worn covers, he discovered the profound teachings of Stoicism, a philosophy that offered a radical perspective on human suffering. He read Marcus Aurelius's words slowly, allowing their truth to sink deep into his weary soul. "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This was not a call to ignore reality, but an invitation to redefine his relationship with it. The core lesson was simple yet revolutionary. While we cannot control what happens to us, we always retain absolute control over how we choose to respond. This realization was a revelation, a key to unlocking a freedom he never knew existed. The very next day, life presented Daniel with its familiar challenges. The morning commute was once again a snarled mess, a symphony of blaring horns and stalled vehicles. But this time, something was different. Instead of succumbing to the familiar surge of anger, Daniel took a deep breath. He consciously chose to shift his focus, allowing the calming rhythm of music to fill his car. Later, at work, his boss's voice rose in a familiar tirade. Yet Daniel met the outburst not with defensiveness or despair, but with a quiet, composed demeanor. He responded calmly, his inner peace undisturbed. Daniel couldn't change the traffic. He couldn't silence his boss's shouting. But he could, and did, change his response. This subtle, internal shift was monumental. It was a quiet revolution, a reclaiming of his inner sovereignty. And in that profound change of response, everything else began to transform. As Daniel continued to practice this newfound wisdom, his life began to blossom. The constant internal struggle subsided, replaced by a quiet resilience. He found himself smiling more, genuinely connecting with his family, his laughter echoing with a newfound lightness. The storm that had once raged within him had finally passed. His relationships, once strained by his irritability, began to heal and flourish. He approached challenges not with dread, but with a calm, measured perspective. The peace he had so desperately sought in external circumstances was no longer elusive. It was firmly rooted within him. When he mastered his mind, when he understood that his perceptions were his ultimate power, life's storms lost their ability to overwhelm him. The chaos of the world still existed, but it no longer held sway over his inner tranquility. Peace was no longer something to be found outside, it was a state he cultivated from within. The world will always be chaotic. It will present us with challenges, frustrations, and moments that test our very limits. We cannot control the external events that unfold around us, nor can we dictate the actions of others. But we possess a profound and unwavering power. Remember this truth: your mind is your kingdom. It is the one domain over which you hold absolute dominion. Guard it fiercely, cultivate it wisely, and choose your responses with intention. For within the sanctuary of your own thoughts lies the ultimate source of your strength. Embrace this power. Understand that true freedom is not the absence of external difficulty, but the mastery of your internal landscape. When you realize you have power over your mind, not outside events, you will always find strength, resilience, and an unshakable peace.